Welcome back to a development commentary of In the Iron Garden. In my previous video, I did a developer commentary of the playthrough of the map jam version of this map, and I kind of want to document the development process of making this into a complete map, because in that video, I said I wanted to make this, or make it into a proper map, and I'm going to. And this is going to be, as I said, documenting that. And we're just going to get into it right away, because there's quite a lot that I've done in the past few weeks, and I just want to cover them all to get you caught up, so I can sort of try to do this on a little bit more of a regular basis, although I'm not sure on the amount of progress I'll be making on a regular basis, just because of the stuff I need to be doing moving forward is a lot larger and a lot more complicated than this. So we're getting into it. Right off the bat, you can notice that the hotbars changed quite a bit. There is more energy maximum, as well as this number here and this slot here. This number is a currency value. It's an as of unnamed currency, so I'm just going to call it currency. And then the slot here is for power-ups, which are sort of pickups you can get that give you little buffs and boosts that you can just find or pick up from mobs when they die or whatever. I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to implement the player getting those yet, but it's something I do want to add just to endorse exploration more. Something I wanted to do with the design of this is to move it towards a CTM concept of endorsing exploration a lot, and looting isn't really a big thing with the mechanics of this because there's no inventory. I'm actually going to be doing something with the inventory screen because there's all this room and there's an entire menu that you can't use for anything. Because there's no items, really. There's no inventory management, so I want to do something with that. So to endorse exploration, I added currency and modules. And modules are little things you can equip onto your weapon that sort of change how they work a little bit. And I'll be getting into the changes I've made to the weapon overall as well, after I talk about the currency a bit. Now, currency can be found by killing enemies or by breaking these capsules. So these are little things you can find around the world, and you can shoot them to break them and pick up your currency, or you can jump into them or walk into them, however, sort of Legend of Zelda pot style or whatever. And you can spend the currency that you pick up in a terminal. Now, terminals have three variants. There is the upgrade terminal, there is the module terminal, and then there's the both. And basically, when a terminal has a specific thing, you can only do that one thing in this terminal. So I'm just going to have the both open here so I can switch between them. There's the purchase upgrade menu here, which has a list of upgrades you can purchase. There's the energy regeneration, which I removed from something you can pick up in the world. You can now only upgrade your maximum energy and maximum health through pickups you find in the world. You have to purchase upgraded energy regeneration, and every upgrade you purchase increases the amount that the next upgrade does because of how energy regeneration functions. Then there is also firepower, which is the amount of damage that your fire laser does. You can increase that. There is tractor range, which is the amount of blocks that you can pick up entities with your tractor beam. There's freeze duration, which cycles between a main fire and alternate fire freeze duration. And the alternate fire freeze duration also increases the reach, which is the amount of mobs that the alternate fire area of effect affects. And there's also explosive force, which is the amount of knockback and damage that the explosive beam does. Now, I did talk about alternate fire, so we're going to actually go into the changes I've made to the weapon. So there is now a primary fire and an alternate fire that each mode has. Let me actually spawn in an enemy here. Now, the primary fire of the tractor beam, for example, the primary fire just drops the husk, and the alternate fire throws the husk. Now, you'll notice I am crouching to do my alternate fire. I did add a configurable thing to change what buttons. I basically added key mapping, changing what actions do what. So alternate fire by default will be sneak right click because your primary fire is just right click. So to alternate it, you can sneak. Now, there is also swap and drop actions that I can detect. So if you really want something like left click for your primary fire and right click for your alternate fire, you can change your key mapping so that swap is primary fire and right click is alternate fire, and then remap swap to left click or something. So I sort of give the player the option to configure their controls, but the default control scheme of sneaking to do your alternate fire, I feel, is alright enough. It works. I did want to have left click as primary fire and right click as alternate fire, and I tried quite a bit to make it work, and if you've watched me for a while, you'll know about PBE, which had left click detection, but that was a highly specialized system that worked very specifically for the constraints that, or basically the entire thing was built around the constraints that left click detection required. But this I didn't want to have to constrain for something like left click detection, so it just doesn't really work. So for actual consistent left click detection, I basically just elected to allow the player to bind swap or drop to left click and then change their key bindings in game or in the map, which I think is an alright compromise. It's not the best, but it's better than an iffy at best left click detection. If there's ever a consistent left click detection added to the game, I will put it into the system, but for now it just has to be what it is, basically. But the tractor beam alternate fire throws, as I said, the ice beam primary fire slows the entity down more. Right now I have a module that fully freezes the entity, so if I unequip that for, like, whatever, fast freeze, you'll see that the entity still moves a little bit. Now the alternate fire is, let's wait for this guy to unfreeze. The alternate fire is an area of effect freeze that slows them down a little bit less and for less time. Now the explosive beam, primary fire is just a standard explosion, does a little bit of damage, has a little bit of force behind it. It's alright for explosive jumping, but the alternate fire is really good for explosive jumping. You can get all the way up to the top of this building, if I could actually not mess it up a little bit. There we go. So you can get all the way up here if you want to. It also does more damage. Not that this is the greatest damaging thing in the world. Also, there are health drops. You can no longer heal by sneaking. I elected to add health drops. The percentage rate at which health drops is a configurable value that is dynamic based on the amount of health you have. So if I set display my desperation value here, you'll see that I have a few values here. There is a maximum drop percentage, which is the maximum chance that health can drop off an entity, and that chance is between 0 and the maximum chance, and the percentage is the amount of health you have missing. So if your maximum drop percentage is 50 and you have half health, your current drop percentage will be 25. Now this value here, the player value, is the actual desperation value, and this health value is the destination. So if I take more damage here, you can see that this slowly creeps up. Every second the value increases to match the HP value, and this basically makes it so so you don't immediately have that value. It basically takes time to ease into it. There's no real reason for that, but it's just to make it ease in, and it will approach 0, basically going back down as fast as possible. So once a tick. So that's how the desperation value works. You'll notice that whenever I take damage here, it goes up to 7 because the lowest possibility is 7%. I didn't want the player to not, or to have a very low chance when their health is low, just so that players don't have to wait to get health for a very long time. It also makes it so players can get more health, because otherwise your drop percentage will stay very low for quite a while, and it could get frustrating, I felt, so I just added a floor value that it will default to if you have some health missing. So that's the desperation thing and the alt fire. And I think that's most things covered when it comes to the mechanics of this. I do want to talk about the gameplay. Now, something in the original map that I really liked was there being a boss that introduced you to the mechanics of the weapon that you get when you kill that boss. Sort of a Metroidvania thing where the progression is, or the next bit of progression is introduced to you by something using a mechanic that then you get to utilize. But I also did want the player to fight a boss that has the same weapon as them. So for a design middle ground, I decided to add mid-bosses. Basically, they're a boss that introduce you to the mechanic that you have to fight without it, and then the next boss after that, you then have the weapon that boss has, and you have to use it to fight the boss. And I felt like this is a pretty good mid-ground. It also increases the length of the map by a bit, and allows me to have some interesting dungeon design, because I can have a dungeon where you go through it, and there's a bunch of things in the dungeon that the upgrade that you're going to get from the mid-boss in that dungeon would solve. So immediately when you get the upgrade that that mid-boss gives you, you can see the dungeon in a different light. You sort of have a different view on how you can navigate through that dungeon and solve puzzles, and there's puzzles that you can't solve without the weapon upgrade that you get from the mid-boss. And then you go through the dungeon, and then you fight a boss using that upgrade. And it allows me to have more content while still feeling natural, as well as having better progression, I feel, because a big weak point of the map jam version of this map was a lack of progression. And I really want to also, in the new builds for this, to endorse the player to use all of their weapons for navigation and combat, because also a big part that was lacking was combat, and I just basically made it so you can't instant kill stuff anymore and force you to utilize stuff. And the modules also endorse exploration, and when you find stuff you can like change up your fighting style. You have the fire and ice here, and then maybe you can give yourself an ice module that fully freezes something and increases your damage on a fully frozen and stunned target or something. I basically want to endorse synergies between weapons. A suit module I have in mind is something that makes it so you can use currency as energy. So for late game stuff or whatever, if you have all of your upgrades purchased, you can use that module alongside something like the currency vapors, which increase the amount of currency you get on kill, to use or to synergize those two together and stuff like that. Something I didn't talk about when I went over the terminal is the little details in the terminal. You can't click confirm here until you have a module selected, because it's grayed out. And also, if you have a module already equipped, it has a different option. It says change instead of equip. So just little details here. There's also this blinking light, which I really like. I feel like it gives some life to the terminal, more than just a blank, unmoving screen. I really like this light. I've done a lot for this light to make it work. The amount of effort I've put into this one blinking light here is ridiculous. I redesigned the terminal multiple times to make this blinking light work, because there's a lot of little things I have to do. This is the bottom line of the text, because this is a lectern. This is the bottom line of the book. There's one line of text here, and then there's this here. So there's two lines dedicated to basically nothing, although on the upgrade screen, this number right here is actually right here. I just used the same font asset as I used for the hotbars currency display, and it just so happened to perfectly be aligned to this spot, which I really like where it is. The currency used to be right here, but it's no longer there. So that's just little details on the terminal that I'm proud of and glad that I went through. Also, when you step away from the terminal, it will go back to here. But if you open your screen and just do this, it stays open. There's a 10 block radius before the terminal resets itself back to the home page, basically just to make it so you can sort of click out of stuff without getting frustrated by it going back to the home page every time you reopen the terminal. So that's that. I do want to showcase the mid-boss, or one of the mid-bosses I have designed. I have so far really only thought fully one boss, and that is this dude here. This is sort of a construction robot, sort of designed like a scorpion, although it only has 4 legs instead of 6 or 8. I don't know how many legs a scorpion has, to be fully honest. It has these things here instead of claws. This is sort of supposed to be a bulldozer. If you follow me on Twitter, you will recognize this pose. But basically, what it's supposed to do, I don't have an animation that actually has the plow, because for some reason this isn't animated. But basically, it moves the plows together, sort of centered, sort of like a bulldozer plow, and it can push stuff. And then there's also the tail. This has the explosive laser on it. So basically, the sort of idea in lore for this is it blows up rocks with its explosive beam and then moves them around with its bulldozer plow. And you get introduced to this boss pretty early on. I've already thought out some of the set pieces in this map, and you get introduced to this boss early in the game, and then something happens to it, and it's evil now, and you have to fight it. And then you get the explosive beam. If you follow me on Twitter, you can also see amazing things, like it doing the crab rave. Let me put it at a better speed. I have a GIF on my Twitter of it doing a crab rave. But it's actually looping instead of doing what this is doing. And this sort of gives you an idea of how it moves as well. Each of these joints can only do one thing. There's this joint here, which rotates this direction. So if I open this, this one only rotates in this direction. Then there is this joint here, which only rotates like this. There's this joint, which only rotates like this. Then the knee, which rotates... the knee, which only rotates like this. Then there's this joint here, which just can do whatever. It can rotate in any direction. It's sort of animator's free reign to make it flat. If you look at the crab rave animation, you can see that it sort of rotates a bit here and there to make it work. I'm not the greatest at animating this. As you can see, the feet slide around a little bit. And then there's also this hydraulic cylinder here, which can stretch to make the robot fit its correct height. This is just for extra flexibility for animating the rig. I kind of wanted this to be as versatile as possible. Then with the claw here, this has the same animation as all of this. So this bit here is the same. It's actually copied. And then there is a wrist joint here, which can rotate like this. Another wrist joint here, which can rotate like this. And then lastly, the plow itself can rotate like this. And that's all of the range of motion. The tail can theoretically be animated to do whatever. You can have it sway side to side. If you watch it here, I have it sway a little bit. But it also, if I go to my tail animation here, I guess I don't have that actually animated. Basically, the tail, each of these segments are separate bones. So you have this, 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 and then this. There's a lot of bones in the tail. All of these here. There's 13 bones alone in the tail. There's 59 bones in this entire model. It's actually a really complicated model, so animating it's quite difficult. I've been considering trying to commission someone to animate it for me if I'm not good enough, because I I really want this map to be as good as I can make it, so I want every part of it to be as good as I can make it. And this is also a placeholder texture, that's why it's sort of flat. This isn't the final look of it. It's just I wanted to get all the bones in place, get it rigged and stuff. But I am considering hiring someone to do the animation for me because I'm not sure if I can do this rig justice with the amount of the degree of freedom that this has. I feel can be a lot more expressed than what I'm capable of expressing through it. But I'm going to try my hand at it, and if I feel I'm adequate, then I will just go with my animations. But if I feel I can't, then I'll just get someone else to do it, because I'm sure there's someone out there that's willing to animate a fully rigged and textured model. But that's basically everything I wanted to talk about. If you want mild updates here and there, I do post on my Twitter fairly often with just little things. As I said earlier, my crab rave GIF is on there. That is the pose, not the crab rave. The crab rave. But yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about. I will probably have more of these coming up in the future as I develop more of this map. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I will catch y'all next time.